Today, we shall be talking of an author, Babhani Bhattacharya. Babhani Bhattacharya is an Indian novelist writing in English and was a contemporary of Mulk Raj Anand, R.K. Narayan, Raja Rao, and other Indo-Anglical writers of great stature in early post-independence period of India. Bhattacharya was a prolific writer who seemed to have an inexhaustible store of creative talent even in the latter part of his life. His fiction depicts the contemporary social, political, economic, and religious realities of India before and after independence. His work echoes his strong belief that art must have a social and moral function, that is, a didactic meaning. Art should have a function of making people realize the moral values and their value systems. And he also believed that literature should depict contemporary events realistically and truthfully so that the people get a real picture of what the present state of a particular place or a particular area is, and they get a clear picture of that. His major works in fiction include So Many Hungers, Music for Mohini, The Goddess Named Gold, Shadow from Ladakh, and A Dream in Hawaii. Now, the story that we will just discuss is called A Glory of Twilight, that is written by Babhani Bhattacharya. And this story is a story about Satyajit. Satyajit, who having risen in life beyond imagination, finds himself shorn of his wealth, status, and peace of mind at one stroke of destiny. Everything was taken away from him at one particular moment. With his life and at the career that he had so carefully built lying in shreds around him, Satyajit decides to go to his village, where he is still regarded as a millionaire, and to attend a wedding. However, his desperate attempt to taste glory proves him disastrous than anything he could ever see. Now, beginning with the story, Satyajit Ray is a person. As the story opens, we find him sitting in a train, and we find people behaving in various typical forms in a typical Indian train. And I'm talking of those times, those were the pre-independence times, where trains were operated on coal, and the trains made undue halts at any place they wanted to. The train kept standing for hours on a particular place. The people, they could even get off the train and go and pick up a particular fruit from a particular place, from a particular garden, or from a particular place. They could pick up a watermelon, and a few people, they would be cribbing like typical passengers, and a few people conspired in their minds to write a particular letter or a complaint letter to the authorities who operated the train, and many of them also walked away for a personal pursuit, that is a more private pursuit. Satyajit Ray was found sitting in the same train, and he was thinking. The story opens with when he was thinking of the thought, what now? Now, what now is something that came to his mind, and a flash of memories struck his mind again, and he began from the time where he had come to that town that was close to his village. The name of his village is Shantipur, and he had come to the town, that is Kolkata, and he had risen in life beyond imagination. Satyajit Ray had started his life as a bank clerk, and when he had started his life as a bank clerk, he was a hard-working person. And it once happened that there was somebody who came at the counter and to encash money, and there was a person who gave him a check. And Satyajit Ray's intelligence found out that the check was not signed by the person who came to encash it, and he got hold of that person, and it was discovered that there was a forgery committed by that particular person who wanted to get the check encashed. And that forgery, however, that forgery was committed by the person. However, it was found out that the reason was very sad. His wife had been unwell for a very long time, and he wanted money for the wife's treatment, but the master was not willing to give him the money. So he had access to the master's checkbook. He signed, copied the signatures of the masters, forged the signatures, and Satyajit Ray was intelligent enough to catch hold of that person. Now that was the turning point in Ray's life, and thereafter he was promoted to a very high level, and he finally became the MD of that particular company, that particular bank. He had risen beyond imagination at a very short span of time, but in his path towards glory, he also compromised. He also gave up on the ethics or the ethical value system that he had developed when he had come to this particular place. He now owned a big mansion, he had a wife, he had a child, and he also had lots of money and lots of luxuries in life. But that was done at the cost of many things that he had compromised for in his life. Despite that fact, he was an intelligent man. But yes, when we talk of MNCs, when we talk of private companies, we never know when a company goes into losses, and we never know when our goodies and the perks that we have in our lives can be taken away. Such a thing happened in Satyajit's life as well. The company went bankrupt, and so did Satyajit Ray. He had to give away everything that he had: the house, the cars, the money, the loan, the extravaganza, the luxury, and the richness that was associated with him. Everything had almost finished except one thing. He was hungry for glory. He was hungry for fame. And that was the thing because of which he could not be content or patient in life. In this time of problems, he had sent his wife away with the child to her mother's place, and he was alone in the house. Now there was a time that came, and because of which he realized that he could go to his village, because there was this uncle Srinath who lived in that village Shantipur and who had a daughter who was getting married. In that village back home in Shantipur, people were not aware that he had gone bankrupt, and Satyajit Ray did not want to tell them this either. The only possession that he had in his life were also in the same village Shantipur, and the two possessions that he had, one of them was a fish pond and one of them was an old house. The house and the fish pond were the two possessions that were left with him, and nothing else. Apart from that, he was left with 200 rupees in his pocket, which he had planned very, very carefully, and he wanted to spend 50 rupees on a preambulator that he would be given to his wife for the newly born child. Now that preambulator is also called a pram, that we call pram in the daily language. He wanted to buy that for his wife and the child. But in between, a thought struck him that he should go back to the village because he had been invited there for the wedding of Uncle Srinath's daughter named Beena. Satyajit Ray had already gone to the village to attend the wedding of 3 of his other daughters, and Damini, Kamini, and one more of them. And this was the 4th daughter, Beena, who was getting married. So at that time, when he was a rich man, he afforded a lot of money and he could give Uncle Srinath a lot of money, goodies, and therefore he was worshipped in that village. So he did not want to break the myth of the people. For the sake of his short-lived glory and fame that he had enjoyed, he did not want to tell the truth to the people who were living in the village. So Satyajit Ray decides to go back on a train back to his village Shantipur for the sake of that short-lived glory. As the train arrives the village, he is standing at the door of the train. The people exulting, people are happy, they worship him, they run for him, they garland him, they worship him, and there are so many people who've come there with so many things to welcome Satyajit Ray, and this was a spectacle to be witnessed. He was taken very, very reverently in a horse cart back home, in a bullock cart back home, and there the daughter who was supposed to be married came. He blessed the girl. Then there were other people who washed his feet, who made him feel like a king, because he was an intelligent person who had gone out of the village in search of glory and fame. He had achieved it all. He was a hard-working man, but Now that he was not a hardworking and a rich man, he did not want people to know that, for the sake of the glory that he had once enjoyed. So it happened that all the people there, they worshipped him and they welcomed him. The time of the wedding arrived, and he had planned in his mind to give 100 rupees to the girl as a wedding gift, and he probably thought 100 would be inauspicious, so he decided to add one more rupee to that and make it 101 rupees, and the rest 50 rupees he had kept for the preambulator for his child. The evening arrived and the groom side also arrived, and there was Uncle Srinath, overjoyed, very happy, and thanked him for his blessings that he gave to the girl. But there was some problem that happened in between, and the problem was that Uncle Srinath came up in agony, in confusion, in anger, walked up to Satyajit Ray and requested him to lend money. He had thought that Satyajit Ray is a rich man and he could afford to give money to these people. Now, requesting him for money, he demanded that the groom side is demanding 2001 rupees. 2001 rupees is not a big amount for you, said Uncle Srinath. You are a rich man, you can give it to me right now, right away. I had asked for that money from people, but right now there is nobody who is willing to give me money. At this also, Satyajit did not reveal his real financial status, and he acted in a manner saying that I have forgotten my checkbook at home and I do not carry so much of cash along. Now, to this, Uncle Srinath was astounded and he could not believe it, because for him, a rich man always has a checkbook with him. But even then, Satyajit tried to convince him, saying that go out and ask the moneylender Harish to lend you money. He went out and came back disgusted after an hour because Harish, the moneylender, refused to give him money. He said that Harish would lend him money only if there would be something to mortgage, and Uncle Srinath was not left with anything for which he could mortgage and give and take the money instead of that. So the only two things that were there were the fish pond and the house that was owned by Satyajit Ray, and he had no option except mortgaging his very dear house which he had visited now, and the fish pond with which he was attached with. And this house had seemed like a real house to him after a very long period of time. He had never enjoyed his mansion. He had never felt that peace that he felt in his ancestral home, and he also regretted not coming back to his hometown when he was affluent, when he was rich. And these were the two things that he wanted to give to his wife that he was left with. But for the sake of his short-lived glory, he decided he had no option but to give away his house and the fish pond for the sake of that 2001 rupees that Uncle Srinath needed for the wedding. So after the deal was done, Srinath was very happy, overjoyed. The wedding went on successfully. Everybody was rejoicing. Everybody was happy. And there was Satyajit Ray, who went under a tree and smoked the last cigarette that he had in his tin. And the only thought that was on his mind was, what now? Now what? What is going to happen to my future now? And that is the place when the story ends. And this story is called A Glory of Twilight, because glory, as we all know, is fame, and twilight is a period that comes before night and after the day is over, and that particular period lasts technically for 4 minutes only. And why is it called Glory at Twilight? Because the time of the wedding was twilight, and also because twilight is very short-lived. So for the sake of those 4 minutes, Satyajit Ray had to give away everything that he had in his life, and that glory ruined him. That success, that urge for being famous, ruined him and his life and his future.